As the sun rises over the eastern desert of Egypt, basking the land in a red, yellow, and orange sunset, the sun's rays warm your home and welcome a new day. Your brothers and friends begin yawning and telling each other good morning as they start laughing and telling jokes. Sneaking behind you, they pour a jar of water on your head and laugh heartily as you finally wake up. Stirring up from your ground, your reed mat soaked and now dirty from the mud below, you get up and greet the sun and those around you. The year is 2549 BC, and your name is Akhmet Seket, and you are working on the Great Pyramid of Khufu. Putting on your sandals and some linen garments to cover your body, you and your friends begin applying makeup on each other. This might sound a bit crazy for grown men to take turns putting makeup on, but it was vital for the strength and health in working in the hot desert sun. The heat in the middle of the day could reach over 120 Fahrenheit or 51 Celsius, and it doesn't help you're surrounded and shifting large blocks of stone, which retain heat throughout the day. The makeup helps cool your body, reflect the sun. Makeup was so integral for building pyramids and monuments in this harsh desert climate that the first recorded worker strike in history was when the pharaoh could not afford to buy enough makeup for his workers. Walking over to the foreman, he and the architects begin to lecture you on where the blocks must go for the day and the reward for the end of the day. A whole 12 gallons of sweet beer. You, your friends, and your brothers and other laborers are divided into competing teams, each trying to move the most stone in the quickest amount of time. Teams would have varying names, from Friends of Ra, Servants of the Pharaoh, and your team name, the Drunkards of Giza. Gifts and rewards would be given to the winner at the end of each day, ranging from meat, sweet cakes, extra beer rations. You and your team are looking forward to those extra beer rations. Walking towards the river, you're greeted by sailors and craftsmen bringing stones on large barges up the river, who dock their boats and help you shift the stone off the ship. Putting the stone onto large rollers and tying ropes around it, you begin to heave it onto land. Unlike what many movies, books, or TV shows may claim, the pyramids were not built by slaves, but by dedicated and devoted skilled laborers. Slavery as it existed in ancient Egypt was different to the antebellum South or ancient Rome, with slaves never becoming a substantial percentage of the population or being used for grand monument construction. Primarily those being who fell into slavery, being debtors who could no longer pay, criminals, or war captives. Since these monuments were meant for the pharaoh and for the glory of the state and the gods, slaves would not have been permitted to work on such grand projects. You are not a slave, and you happily work for the pharaoh in constructing his pyramid. During the time of the flooding season of the Nile, when the river flooded the fields and irrigated the soil, it was impossible to farm or do any agriculture work. So many in this time worked in other professions, such as hunting, trading, manual labor, going into the army, and more. You and everybody you know chose to work on the Pharaoh's Grand Pyramid. Not only are you getting well fed, given generous rations of meat, sweet fruits, beer, bread, hearty vegetables, but there are also games to play after work, and you yourself are making a mark on such a grand monument. Though you will not live forever, the work you put into the pyramid is set in stone. Pouring water onto the sand and oil onto the rollers, it makes the sand more firm and makes the rollers greased, making it easier to shift stone blocks. These were giant white limestone blocks, each weighing up to 2 to 15 tons. As you and your team shift the stone and have runners grab the rollers and bring them forward, you sing songs to lift your spirits up and tell jokes and stories. Your brother sings a song of a crocodile hunting a bird. Your friend tells a story about how the pharaoh slew hundreds of barbarians with his bow and crushed his enemies. You tell everybody a joke, about when the foreman fell into the toilet pit a few days earlier. Shifting these stones is back-breaking labor, and as the sun nears midday, you and your team stop for a break, drinking beer, eating goat meat, dates, and bread. Beer at this time was widely drunk across Egypt and came in different forms. The beer you're drinking is only 2 to 3% and often had to be drunk with a straw to filter out any impurities. This was at a time when water filtration was incredibly primitive and all kinds of filth, from sewage, dead animals, and more were poured into the Nile. Though you may feel a slight buzz, you won't get drunk. Going back to work, you drag the stone up a ramp and onto the foundations of the pyramid, pushing into place as the last rollers are removed. And to sign your work, you carve a hieroglyph with the name of your team into the stone. You may have time to get another more smaller stone into place before the day's end. As the sun begins to set and the laborers begin to pack up camp, you end the day with your friends and your brothers and boast of how strong you all have become. As you crowd around, the foreman proclaims the winner of the day. It's the drunkards of Giza. Your team has won 12 gallons of fine honey and date-sweetened beer. Sharing your beer and drinking it all together through filtered straws, you laugh and talk about your families and what you'll do when you see them again. Personally, you can't wait to see your wife Sekhmet and your daughter Apai again and tell them stories about the pyramid and its construction. Settling down for the night and cooking lamb with oil, seasoned with salt, dates, and onions, you'll eat your fill and wash it down with your hard-earned beer. But before going into bed, you'll jump into the Nile with your mates and wash up, scrubbing your body, ears, and head with the mix of animal fat, vegetable oil, ash, and clay. It's time to rest and get ready for the next day. As the stars twinkle in the night and comets flash across the sky, you'll praise the gods and goddesses for living one more day before you go to bed, dreaming of your wife and daughter as you begin to sleep. Though this is just one day in the life and it certainly misses out a lot, I do hope you enjoy it, and please watch my other video on ancient Egyptian religion and its rise and fall from grace.